He was a culinary star, his online empire built on original recipes. I watched, a bittersweet smile on my face as he claimed my life's work, dish by dish. But what happens when the silent architect of a dazzling success decides to finally speak? When a mother reclaims her stolen legacy, one authentic flavor at a time. The screen of my tablet cast a cool, blue light across the warm dimness of my living room. On it, my son, Matteo, was a whirlwind of practiced charm. At 32, with 500,000 followers, he was a star in the online culinary world. His smile as bright and polished as the stainless steel kitchen he broadcast from. "And there you have it," he said, gesturing with a flourish to the cast-iron pot simmering on his state-of-the-art induction cooktop. "My signature Urbanites comfort stew, a modern twist on a classic, perfect for soothing the soul after a hectic city day." A bitter smile touched my lips, one he couldn't see. His Urbanites comfort stew. I could almost smell it through the screen, the rich, wine-infused aroma of beef, pearl onions, and thyme. It was buff bourguignon. It was my late husband, Robert's, favorite meal. It was the dish I had perfected over 40 years of marriage, the one I'd simmered on countless cold winter nights to welcome him home. Every single ingredient, every specific step he was now calling a modern twist, was a verse in the love song of my marriage. He took a theatrical bite from a spoonful, his eyes closing in feigned ecstasy. "The secret," he confided to his adoring audience, "is a touch of smoked paprika right at the end. It's a little trick I developed to give it that contemporary edge. My trick, the one I'd discovered by accident one Christmas Eve when I'd run out of regular paprika. Robert had declared it a stroke of genius. Now it was Matteo's. In his narrative, this recipe, this piece of our family's soul, had no history. It had no mother who taught him, no father who cherished it. It had simply sprung, fully formed, from his own brilliant mind. The familiar ache settled in my chest, a hollow feeling I'd grown accustomed to. I was the ghostwriter of my son's success, my existence as neatly edited out as a clumsy first draft. It hadn't always been this way. When Robert passed away 5 years ago, my world shrank to the four walls of this house. Matteo, my only child, became the sun my lonely planet orbited. His budding passion for cooking was a comfort, a continuation of the family life we'd built around the dinner table. When he decided to turn it into a career, I was his biggest cheerleader. In the beginning, he was my devoted student. He'd call me, phone tucked between his ear and shoulder, scribbling notes as I walked him through the delicate process of making my mother's sourdough starter or the precise temperature for a perfect custard. "Mom, no one makes it like you," he'd say, and my heart would swell with a pride that was pure and uncomplicated. I gave him everything, every recipe that had been passed down through generations, every culinary secret I'd ever learned. They were my legacy, and I was thrilled to pass them on to him. The shift was gradual, almost imperceptible at first. As his follower count grew, the calls became less frequent. The credit, once freely given, started to fade. A family recipe became inspired by a family recipe, which soon morphed into my own unique creation. It was a slow, creeping erasure. Then came Chloe. She was sharp, ambitious, with a mind for marketing that saw my son not as a person, but as a brand. As his girlfriend and self-appointed manager, she convinced him that authenticity was a liability. "You need to be the genius, Matt," I once overheard her telling him through the kitchen door. "People want to buy into you asterisk, the self-made culinary artist." From that day on, I became a resource, a database to be mined. My stories, the heartbeats behind each dish, were stripped away, leaving only the bare bones of ingredients and instructions. The apple crumble that I first made to celebrate Robert's promotion, the spicy lentil soup that nursed Matteo through a bad flu in college. They were all repackaged, rebranded, and presented to the world as products of his solitary genius. He was building his empire on the foundations of my life, and I had let him, telling myself that a son's success was a mother's joy, no matter the cost. I was just the silent, invisible support beam holding up his dazzling facade. He arrived a week later, vibrating with an energy that filled my quiet house to bursting. In his hands, he held the advance copy of his cookbook, Urban Table. The title was embossed in a stark, minimalist font against a photo of an artfully disheveled plate of pasta. It was beautiful, I had to admit, in a cold, impersonal way. "Here it is, Mom, the culmination of everything," he announced, his face flushed with triumph. He placed the heavy, substantial book into my hands. My own foolish heart, however, was anything but cold. It hammered against my ribs with a hopeful, frantic beat. I was genuinely proud of the physical object, of his ambition realized. But beneath that pride was a small, trembling hope. I wasn't looking for a co-author credit or a chapter dedicated to me. Just a word, a single, small acknowledgement in the fine print. "Thanks to my mother, Giselle." A quiet nod to the woman who'd placed the first wooden spoon in his hand. My fingers, suddenly clumsy, fumbled through the glossy pages. I skipped past the stunning, soulless photography and went straight to the back. The acknowledgements. A long list of names. His agent, his editor, the photographer, the food stylist, even the intern who'd fetched his coffee. My name was not there. A chill began to creep up my spine. "Maybe in the introduction," I murmured to myself, flipping back to the front. I scanned the paragraphs he'd written about his personal culinary journey, his passion for reinventing classics, his philosophy of food. Not a single mention of home, of family, of a mother's kitchen. Then my gaze fell upon the dedication page. It stood alone, pristine and stark, after the title page. The words were printed in an elegant, flowing script, designed to look like a personal inscription. "For my eternal muse, Chloe. It was your love that ignited my creative fire." The air left my lungs in a silent rush. It felt as if the floor had dropped away, leaving me in a cold, soundless void. Eternal muse, creative fire. The words were acid. The fire was mine. It had been lit in my kitchen, fueled by my love for his father, our shared history, and tended with my own 2 hands for 40 years. He hadn't just forgotten me. He had taken the very essence of my life, my love for his father, our shared history, and he had laid it as a tribute at another woman's feet. In that moment, I wasn't just erased. I was replaced. The heartbreak was a physical thing, a shard of ice in my chest. And in its place, something new began to form. Something hard and clear and cold. For 2 days, I didn't answer the phone. I didn't look at my tablet. I sat in the quiet of my home, the silence no longer feeling empty, but charged with a new, sharp clarity. I looked at the photograph of Robert on the mantelpiece, his kind eyes smiling out at me. We had built a life together, a tapestry woven from small, everyday moments of love. Our food was the thread that held it all together. What Matteo had done wasn't just plagiarism. It was an act of profound disrespect to that life, to that memory. He had tried to unpick the threads and reweave them into a story that served only him. The grief in my chest finally hardened into resolve. I would not let our story be erased. I was the keeper of these memories, and it was my duty to protect them. The catalyst for action came in the most mundane way, through the mail slot. It was the fall course catalog from Maple Creek Community College, a thick booklet I usually tossed straight into the recycling bin. This time, for some reason, I picked it up. I idly flipped through the pages listing classes on pottery, local history, conversational Spanish. And then, a thought, so audacious it made me catch my breath, began to form. What if I could tell my own story? My hands trembled as I dialed the number for the continuing education department. I scheduled a meeting with its director, a Dr. Anya Sharma, my voice sounding small and foreign to my own ears. Walking into her office a few days later, I felt like an imposter, clutching a worn, leather-bound journal where I'd handwritten my most precious recipes decades ago. I was just a widow, a mother, a home cook. What business did I have here? I sat across from Dr. Sharma, a woman with warm, intelligent eyes, and I began to speak. I told her about the buff bourguignon and Robert. I told her about the lemon ricotta cookies I'd made for Matteo's first-grade bake sale. I explained that each recipe was a chapter in my family's life. "I know it probably sounds silly," I finished, my voice wavering. "They're just old recipes." Dr. Sharma leaned forward, her expression not one of pity, but of genuine excitement. She gently took my journal and looked at the spidery handwriting with reverence. "Giselle," she said, her voice firm and kind, "these are not just recipes. This is living history. This is cultural heritage. In a world saturated with slick, impersonal content, this authenticity, this connection to a real story, is what people are starving for. You don't have something silly, you have something vital. For the first time in 5 years, I felt seen. Not as a mother, not as a widow, not as a resource, but as a person with something valuable to offer the world. The validation was like a drink of cool water after years of thirst. A plan, clear and bright, began to bloom in my mind. With Dr. Sharma as my champion, the plan took shape with a calm, deliberate precision that felt incredibly empowering. We weren't just creating a course, we were building a platform for the truth. We named it Forgotten Flavors, telling our stories through food. The title felt right, a quiet reclamation of all that had been pushed into the shadows. Anya was a whirlwind of efficiency. She secured a small budget, booked the college's teaching kitchen, and assigned a tech-savvy student intern, a young woman named Lily, to help me. Our first official meeting was in my own kitchen, the scent of lemon and ricotta from a test batch of cookies hanging in the air. "This," Anya said, closing her eyes as she savored a cookie, "is what's missing. You can't manufacture this feeling, Giselle. This tastes like a real place, a real person." Lily, meanwhile, had her laptop open on my worn oak table. "So the blog," she began, her expression earnest. "We don't want it to look like his. His is all sharp edges and monochrome. Yours should feel like this kitchen, warm, a little cluttered with love. We can use a parchment paper background and a font that looks like handwriting." For the first time, I saw the digital world not as an intimidating space that had stolen my identity, but as a tool I could wield myself. For the next 3 weeks, my house, once a place of quiet grief, became a bustling headquarters of purpose. I dove into my past, not with sadness, but with a new sense of mission. By day, I was in the kitchen, my hands dusted with flour, retesting every recipe. I measured with a new precision, imagining myself explaining each step to a room full of eager faces. My nights were spent at my old writing desk. At first, the words came haltingly. I felt a tremor of the old guilt. Was I being vindictive? But then I would look at Robert's photo and my resolve would harden. I wasn't writing out of anger. I was writing out of love. With Lily's patient guidance, I learned how to type up my stories. I wrote about the specific brand of red wine Robert insisted on for the stew. A cheap but robust Merlot we discovered on our honeymoon in the Napa Valley, drinking it from plastic cups in a roadside motel and promising each other that one day we'd taste the real thing in Burgundy. We never made it to France, but that Merlot became our little joke, our secret ingredient. I wrote about the happy accident chocolate cake, a lopsided, slightly sunken creation that resulted from a distracted afternoon when a 5-year-old Matteo was helping me bake. It became our official birthday cake, its imperfection a symbol of our messy, beautiful family life. Lily helped me scan and upload the old photographs, a faded Polaroid of Robert proudly holding that first, flawed cake, a picture of a tiny Matteo with chocolate frosting smeared from ear to ear. The final, crucial piece of the strategy was timing. Anya, with her sharp, strategic mind, laid it out for us. Matteo's publisher will start their major social media push about 10 days before the launch, she explained, looking at a calendar we'd taped to my fridge. We will go live exactly 1 week before his book hits the shelves. We're not just launching a course, Giselle. We are preemptively setting the narrative. By the time his book is released, the real story will already be out there. His original creations will be seen in a very different light. It wasn't an attack. It was a quiet, unassailable defense. I was simply putting my own story into the world, in my own name, before it could be permanently rewritten by someone else. Looking at the finished blog preview on Lily's laptop, with my words and my family's faces smiling back at me, I felt a sense of ownership I hadn't realized I'd lost. The day the blog went live, I was a bundle of nerves. Anya, Lily, and I sat around my kitchen table, watching the analytics page Anya had pulled up on her laptop. For the first hour, there was just a trickle of visitors, mostly from the direct link in the community college's newsletter. I felt a pang of doubt. Maybe no one would care. Then the first comment appeared. It was from a woman named Brenda. "This story about the stew, it made me cry. It reminds me of my own father." I've just signed up for the class. Soon another followed, and another. Lily, who was monitoring the local town's Facebook group, suddenly gasped. Someone shared it. Someone shared the blog in the Maple Creek Foodies group. That's when the trickle became a flood. The post about the buff bourguignon was the one that caught fire. People weren't just sharing the recipe. They were sharing the story of me and Robert. It was reshared by local bloggers, then regional food writers. By evening, the server for the college website had to be upgraded to handle the traffic. My little blog, my quiet act of defiance, had struck a chord. The authenticity Anya had spoken of was resonating in a way I could never have imagined. Every like, every share, every heartfelt comment felt like a stitch, mending a part of me I didn't know was so torn. The first inkling that our quiet ripple had reached Mateo's shore came 2 days later. His publisher began their promotional push for *Urban Table*, posting a slick video of Mateo making his signature stew. The reaction was immediate and not what they had anticipated. "Wait a minute," the top comment read. "Isn't this the Forgotten Flavors recipe? The one about the husband and the honeymoon Merlot?" Another user replied, "I thought so too. The story on that blog was so beautiful, this feels." Hollow. The comments section, once a space of fawning adoration for Mateo, transformed into a forum of amateur detectives. People started cross-referencing. They found my post about the happy accident chocolate cake and compared it to Mateo's deconstructed lava cake. They saw my lavender shortbread and his artisanal botanical biscuits. His original genius was being dismantled in real time by a jury of his own followers. The narrative was no longer his to control. The inevitable phone call came that night. His number flashed on my screen, and I let it ring 3 times before answering, my hand steady. "Mom, what have you done?" His voice wasn't just angry, it was laced with a panicked disbelief. "You're humiliating me. My publisher is furious. Everyone is calling me a thief, a liar." I took a deep breath, the air in my lungs feeling clean and cool. The old Giselle would have been flustered, apologetic, desperate to soothe his ego. But that Giselle was gone. "I haven't done anything to you, Mateo," I said, my voice calm and even. "I simply decided to tell my own stories. The story of my life with your father, the story of raising you. Those stories and those recipes were never yours to claim alone. You're destroying my career, everything I've worked for," he yelled. "No," I said, and for the first time I felt the full, unshakable weight of my own truth. "You built a career on a story that wasn't true. I'm just finally publishing the original." 3 months later, the autumn leaves were turning brilliant shades of orange and red outside the windows of the Maple Creek Community College teaching kitchen. The fallout for Mateo had been swift and brutal. Urban Table was released to a storm of controversy and ridicule. Online, it was mockingly referred to as the Book of Stolen Flavors. Sales were abysmal. His most lucrative sponsorship, a high-end cookware brand that prided itself on authenticity, quietly terminated his contract. And Chloe, his eternal muse, proved her love was directly proportional to his earning potential. She left him a week after the sales figures came out. He had tried to apologize. Twice. The first time was a furious, rambling text message that blamed me for his downfall while simultaneously asking how he could fix this. The second was a strained, awkward visit where he sat in my living room, unable to meet my eye, and mumbled something about not realizing how much the stories meant to me. I saw no real remorse in his eyes, only the panicked desperation of a man whose brand had been broken. I wished him well, but I did not offer him a path back to my kitchen. The lock on that door had been changed. My own world, in contrast, had blossomed. My Forgotten Flavors course was sold out for the next 2 semesters. I stood at the head of a gleaming stainless steel counter, not unlike Mateo's, but mine was filled with a different kind of energy. It was filled with people. A retired librarian who wanted to document her grandmother's Polish recipes. A young father hoping to learn to bake for his children. A diverse group of students, all of them looking at me with respect, calling me Giselle or Professor G. I was no longer a ghostwriter. I was an author, a teacher, a historian. I was sharing not just my recipes, but the very idea that their own family stories were precious and worth preserving. At the end of each class, we would all sit down together and share the meal we had created, and the room would fill with laughter and conversation. One afternoon, as I was wiping down the counter after a particularly lively class on apple pies, I caught my reflection in the polished steel of a cabinet door. I saw a woman of 68, her face lined with the map of her life, her hands dusted with flour. But her eyes were bright, and she was smiling a genuine, peaceful smile. My kitchen was still the heart of my home, still a place of warmth and creation. But now, its warmth radiated outward, and the food I made nourished not just my own small family, but a growing community. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt completely, blessedly free. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a journey, but one that has brought me more peace than I ever thought possible. If you're out there feeling unseen or unheard in your own life, please know that your story has value. It's never too late to pick up the pen and write it for yourself.